This podcast was produced on the traditional lands of the Dharawal people, and we wish to pay our respects to the elders past, present, and those emerging.
Kirsty and Jane and Nicola are maybe better placed to explain this, but for me, I don't think anyone could have created something like Storyhouse Childless without trust in each other. That feels really important and really core. So you've got to take your time and build that with the people that you're working with. So yeah, I'd certainly start by looking for people with the relevant kind of lived experience and bringing them together for a small conversation and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Annabel, because I very much had my local tribe, as it were, of then Gateway Women. I was going in kind of asking for space on sort of their behalf. And I was at a place in my childlessness where, you know, I'd come to a point where I'd still get emotional. We all do. It's a roller coaster. But I was happy to go and speak up. I'm happy to share my story, to talk out, because like I said, the awareness is a thing. So, and I was also brought up, if you don't ask, you don't get. So just to, you know, carefully look at what venues are in your area, look at the kind of thing that they're doing. Do they do other community projects? Are they really community friendly? Are they really inclusive? And yeah, you have to be brave, but it's worth it. It's so worth it if you can kind of go in and have those discussions. And as Annabel said, if you've got a sort of a group of you, there's also power in numbers.
Welcome to the Full Stop Podcast, hosted by Sarah Lawrence, Berenlee Smith, and me, Michael Hughes, where with all our special guests, we explore what it means to be childless and hoping would help you feel validated, seen and inspired, and in turn help you navigate this very different life to the one that we thought we were going to have. You can find out all about us at our website www.thefullstoppod.com, where you can also sign up for our listeners list, where you can keep up to date with what's going on in the wider childless not by choice world. And you can also find out more about joining our private online community. This episode, we welcome members of the Storyhouse Childless Focus Group, Nicola, Kirsty, Jane and Annabel, to talk to us about Storyhouse Childless in September. Now, Storyhouse is a community focal point in Chester with theatres, cinema, library, cafe and bar, and they produce community focus events throughout the year. And in September, they hold the festival Storyhouse Childless. And this is a weekend of events to explore living without children, to build community, share stories, raise awareness and make connections. Now last year, Sarah, Berenice and I met for the first time in real life at this event, and we will be there again this year. Now we forgot to do formal introductions when we started this recording, as it was like an old group of friends coming back together. But I can assure you, as the episode progresses, you'll find out who everyone is. So let's hear from them.
So let's talk Storyhouse. So for the benefit of people who don't know about Storyhouse as a venue, Annabel and Nicola, could I invite you to talk a bit more about Storyhouse and what it's about, how long it's been going, and a bit more about what it means perhaps to the pair of you.
Shall I kick off, Nick?
Annabel, I'll let you go first, yeah.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. So I've been Chief Executive at Storyhouse since last October, so I'm relatively new. It is an incredible independent art centre and creative hub, community hub really, for the city of Chester and the sort of wider catchment area. It houses a theatre, 800-seat theatre, 150-seat studio, a cinema, and amazingly is also the city's central library. So it is a almost always open space, and it's I think it's found a special place in Chester as being a warm, welcoming space for people across the city, as I say, in the wider borough, as a place just to come and be. And obviously, whilst you're there, you can experience lots of different things. In terms of kind of what happens there, I'm going to ask Nick to say a little bit because she's absolutely pivotal to a lot of the amazing things that happen in the spaces.
So when I joined the organisation at the end of 2015, we were 2 years before the building opened, which was in April 2017. And my brief as a community manager was to bring people into the building and bring the spaces alive, build community, and working with targeted groups of people, like young people, older people, socially isolated people. And it kind of was very much that like cliche organic process, but because it was such a new, exciting place in the city, people did, like, my inbox was like boo, 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 like full of organisations and groups saying like, can we do this, can we do this, can we do this? And so yeah, it really nicely worked out that way, that like we did an older people's festival, and when we first opened we did women's festivals, and so now, how many years on, where are we now, in 2024 we run a suite of community co-curated festivals where myself and the other community manager work with groups, organisations, charities to co-curate Storyhouse Women, Storyhouse Queer, Storyhouse Elders, Kaleidoscope, which is a learning disabled led festival, and of course Storyhouse Childless, which started in 2019.
It's fantastic. It's amazing to hear all the other things that are going on. I belong to your newsletter. There's like so many things happening. It's quite an amazing space. It's very impressive.
Yeah, very busy team.
You are.
Yeah, definitely something for everyone in the building.
Yeah, for sure. Jane and Kirsty, could you explain a bit more about your involvement with Storyhouse? What's your connection to it?
Kirsty, you go first because you started it.
It's my fault. I host the Chester group of what is now Childless Collective. Back in 2019 was Gateway Women. And yeah, I've been to the Storyhouse Women Festival that year, some of it. And there were twofold reasons. On the Storyhouse Women Festival, I felt a little bit kind of isolated as a childless person from some of the comments, not from the content so much, but more from like a lot of the kind of comments from the women were obviously mothers and things, and facilitators as well, using a lot of assumptive language and stuff. And also, we lost our meeting space in Chester, where we normally met as Gateway Women once a month. So I went in, to Storyhouse in 2019 to meet with Nicola and see if they could help us out with the space. And we just started chatting about my experiences, and I was like, it'd be really great if there was more stuff for childless, because I really kind of feel quite isolated, and as we all know, it can be quite tricky. And we just kind of started chatting, and she was so receptive and interested. They previously had Jodie Day there in 2017, I think, which I'd missed because it fell just before I kind of knew I was definitely childless or was just coming to terms with it. And so then they really kindly asked in a group of the local then Gateway Women to come in and kind of have a bit of a chat. That was our first kind of mini focus group, I suppose, Nick, wasn't it? And Dawn was there, Dawn Llewellyn. And we've had the first, it just kind of snowballed. I don't know how I managed to do it, Nick. How you managed it in that amount of time in 2019 was,
I can't remember when we met now, but the first festival happened in September 2019. So it was maybe like springtime, wasn't it?
It was
was it like May, June?
Yeah.
So we had a chat, and my ears pricked up and was like, this sounds super interesting. So I'd met Dawn Llewellyn 2 years earlier through the work we'd done with Women of the World, and I'd actually developed a friendship with her, and which was really lovely. I've made lots of friends through my job at Storyhouse, so I'm really lucky for that. And so I said to Kirsty, right, I'll get on the phone to Dawn, she can get on the phone to Jodie. We set up a Zoom about a week later, and I'm thinking about an hour and a half we'd created a programme. I'd obviously asked permission from the bosses and said, can I do this? Can I add this to my portfolio of work? And the then artistic director, Alex, was very supportive. So it was like dead easy in a way. And we created a one-day festival for people who were childless, not by choice, in about an hour and a half. So it's definitely like who kind of thing, but it worked to our advantage.
And I think was that you came to that one, didn't you, Jane? And then eventually you and I managed to connect when I finally managed to check my emails and things. So yeah, I'll let Jane explain how she came to it and how I'm now so in my life.
Thanks, Kirsty. I've been a volunteer at Storyhouse for nearly 10 years, which is long before the building was ever in existence. So, of course, once we got the building, it was fantastic for us volunteers. And I found Jodie. I found Jodie initially online. And then as soon as I saw Storyhouse were inviting her along, I thought, brilliant. So I started engaging more with childless not by choice people. I'm single and childless through circumstance. And I've got on with my life, as you do. And it was when I retired, I suddenly realised that I still didn't fit in with our society because I'm single and because I have no family. So it became more of a focus of mine. And I guess I had more time to explore me and the world out there. So, yes, Kirsty and I made contact, and she invited me to join the local Chester Childless group. And I went along. I am the eldest there because I'm 70 this year. So it changed the dynamics, Kirsty tells me, having my contribution. They keep calling me the wise woman, which I'm not at all. I'm not at all. I am learning every day. But hopefully I can contribute something. That's me.
I have to dispute the fact that you're 70 this year.
I know.
You're not.
I've had from the DVLA a notice that I need to apply for a driving licence because I'm 70 in August. So I've got it on paper.
It's just a number because it does not reflect you and your energy and what you bring to everything in our meetings as well as what you do. It's amazing. Thank you all. Another question for you is, what is Storyhouse Childless? What's happening this year? What does it do? What's the motivation behind doing it?
Who wants to answer that?
Shall I kick off saying it's grown?
Yeah, go on, Kirsty. Yeah.
I just feel so fortunate and so lucky, especially as someone who themselves can't actually travel that much, that I've literally got this on the doorstep, because we've grown from one day for Childless Not by Choice back in 2019 in the Garrett venue, which is the smaller space Annabel was talking about. And we've evolved over the years. So this year we've got 2 whole days and a bit on Friday evening as well. So that's nearly 2.5 if you push it. And we're moving into both spaces. So the main theatre space and also into the Garrett space. So there'll be different things going on so we can have kind of more interactive and more panels, presentations, loads of content. When we came back in 2022 after COVID, we became childless by choice, child free and childless not by choice. So it's the whole kind of gamut of childlessness, which has been really lovely. And again, you just get to meet so many great people who everybody gets it. Even though people have chosen not to have children, it's never necessarily that simple. So yeah, it's just a whole weekend of amazing content over 2 venues in a really nice place.
Shall I, just for the benefit of people who are just still can't imagine it, I was just like looking back at the history of like the 3 years plus of upcoming September. So in 2019, we had a 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. day, all packed in to our beautiful 140-seater Garrett Theatre, and it was all focused around people who are childless not by choice. And actually, someone who was child-free did appear in the audience, didn't they, Kirsty? Do you remember that? And they were there by accident. They were like, I don't think I'm meant to be here. So they did leave, or in a positive way though, but that was, I guess, one of the catalysts of why when we came back after COVID, it gave us that, like, as well as Dawn being child free, who's basically our in-house MC / host, that gave us like the energy and the like inspiration to make it wider. So in 2019, we had the grand total of 60 people come for the whole day, which we were like blown away by. We were well chuffed with that. And then in 2022, we jumped up to 141 people, and we spread out over 2 days, and we really packed a lot in. But again, just for the purpose of people who are listening to this, maybe thinking about coming this year, it's kind of you can buy a pass, or you can buy individual day, you can buy individual events as well. So you're not forced into the theatre and the doors shut behind you and you have to stay all day. You come and go as you please, depending on how you're managing that in terms of your mental health, etc., etc. And then in 2023, because there were just so much content, we were just there's so many ideas. We were we've got to make this over 2 days. So yeah, that 2023 was our first festival of 2 days. And how many people came last year? We had 175 people last year. So, yeah, 175 people last year. So we'd actually outgrown the Garrett Theatre. And when we had our keynote speaker, Jessica Hepburn, we were putting out the front row, and it was quite oh wow, this is actually sold out now. And so if we said in the evaluation, if we wanted to grow and we want to make it available to even more people, and we'd already seen people coming from across the country, even internationally, we had to move into the bigger space. So yeah, this is going to be a new exciting era of the festival. And it's just, I just love how each year, a little bit has grown because of what's happened in the previous year. So the number of men we've seen in the audience has grown. We've gone from, say, in 2022, there were questions being asked about supporting family. So then in 2023, we included content which supported family who were supporting other people. Kirsty, do you want to talk around that? Because I think you really remember that story, don't you?
Yeah, that was really moving. I get moved just thinking about it. 2022, there were some parents there of a, I think probably quite young couple who were kind of just discovering they were going to be childless. The parents obviously had other adult children who were having children, and they just wanted some help, guidance, support, anybody who would understand how they could best support their childless adult children within the whole family. I think that was when we had, I think Steph and people were on screen and things, and people kind of chiming in, but we didn't have anything specifically, available for family. So last year we made sure that one of the actual kind of sessions or panels was to do with exploring how friends and family, can relate to, can support, can understand. And just kind of, really introducing it, because it's not just, and every year since, even last year, there were questions coming up about, well, I'm grieving as for my sister, I'm grieving as a potential non-grandmother, but I don't want to, put that on my, childless daughter or son. What do I do? And again, for the people as well who are childless by choice or child-free, it can have big knock-on effects. Ali, who is going to be leading one of the sessions this year, I think was on the podcast recently, her experiences with her family, it was just really great to be able to share it so that families and friends, they can be supported. So it's not just literally for the childless themselves. I would really encourage people to, especially if there's people who find it difficult to talk to or they don't quite get it, it's a really nice thing to be able to bring them along to, because you're it's not just me. There's all these other people. And it just, yeah.
Yeah, so we definitely don't, it's not are you childless? Are you childless? Right, you can come in, you can't come in. So, yeah.
Do you think it makes a difference to the people that you work with as well in the theatre? So people that may perhaps not be aware of what childless is, do you think other people in the venue have become more aware of it and learned something from it too?
Well, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, yes, I'm sure they have. As I said, I'm quite new, so I've yet to experience a festival firsthand. But interestingly, I was applying for the job and going through the interview process this time last year when the Childless Festival was kind of being promoted. And it was one of the things that made me think, this is a really interesting venue. There's a conversation going on here that I'm not seeing or hearing in many other places. And then when I arrived, obviously heard lots more about it, met some of the people that were involved in it. I think absolutely it's raised awareness across the whole organisation, not just amongst the staff, but volunteers and, many of the communities that come in and sort of use the space for different things. And I think it's two-way, just hearing that story of how it's evolved. It's so important to Storyhouse, to us as an organisation, that our work is being shaped by the people that we're there for. So the fact that it's not a static piece of programming where, a small group of people have sat in a room and decided this is what's going to happen, but actually over those years, as Nicola's just beautifully explained, it's really responded to the people that are attending and their needs and their interests. So it's really important to Storyhouse that it happens there. But I am also learning, I think, and I'm sure Jane and Kirsty can contradict me if I've picked this up wrongly, that it's also really important to all of those communities that are part of that wider childless, child-free community, that it happens at Storyhouse. And I think that goes back to what I was saying about being a safe space. Clearly, people are sharing things that are very difficult sometimes to talk about, or they're not able to share in the way you've just described with close family. So being able to hold this kind of conversation in a space that we really want to feel safe and supportive and responsive and welcoming of all of those different types of people that form this kind of bigger community. So it feels like it's a really lovely two-way relationship, being really important to us for the people that are kind of responsible for Storyhouse, but also important for the people that are coming.
Jane, do you want to tell the audience about your experience of when we did the training with the 150 volunteers? We invited our volunteers, didn't we, to do some training?
I was thinking of that because it was really interesting. We got a group together of volunteers to explain more about the event, because we suspected perhaps they felt a bit hesitant volunteering because they felt inappropriate, and that was what came up with the chat that we had with them, that they felt, one of them had 9 grandchildren, for instance, and she felt uncomfortable volunteering and working the event because she thought, I shouldn't be here. And I think both of us, it really hit us then that we need to educate, sounds over the top, but we need to help them. And what has happened since is individual volunteers have come up to me and spoken to me about family, friends in that position who are childless. And they said, we weren't aware. We didn't know how to handle it. We don't know how to support these people in our lives. And there were others where it had never occurred to them. So I have found that telling my story to a group of volunteers has opened up a lot of discussion, and really open discussion, because as volunteers, you do your job and you go home. You don't really get to know, except for on our socials, we get to know each other a bit better. It's been good for me personally, and hopefully we've been able to make people aware in the wider community.
That was quite a big thing for me personally as well, was raising awareness. That sort of gentle activism, if you like, because we are all so invisible, and to be able to shake off that cloak of invisibility within Storyhouse and into the wider community as well. One of my favourite moments was going in, it wasn't last year, I think it was the year before, and there was a display of childless and child-free books, and there was they've got wonderful digital displays in Storyhouse, and that was there, and I actually just stood behind a family looking at it and reading it and listened to them talking, and they were like, well, what's this? Or we don't know. Well, why do they need that? And they literally came to their own kind of realizations and understanding just within a few minutes. And if that display hadn't been there, if that event hadn't been taking place, they still might have remained completely ignorant to the fact that we exist as a community. And so raising awareness has been really key for me. And it's really lovely that, we get the opportunity to do that.
It's amazing. So I'm just thinking that people that are in different countries will be listening to this and going, well, that's all very well. You're in Chester and I can't get to Chester because I live somewhere else, and it's not possible. Even in the UK, sometimes it's a bit difficult to get there. I know we're doing some stuff with you. We're doing some social media stuff, and we're intending to do a full stop podcast around recordings from the day, 2 days, 2.5 days. We're going to call it a half day, Kirsty. Let's rebel and call it a half day. And we're going to be recording some stuff and doing that. But I'm just wondering that as a concept, Storyhouse Childless, and I'm just riffing here in my head, if there was someone listening to this who runs a theatre or has a connection to a venue somewhere else in the world, in the country, and they wanted to go, actually, we quite like that idea. What advice would you give them if they wanted to kind of take Storyhouse Childless, Child Free, and make it kind of like a bigger thing somewhere else, or do it themselves? How would they go about it?
I think my advice would be find people in your local community to work with and drive it. It can't, in a sense, it can't come from someone like me that runs an organisation. It has to come from people who have, lived experience, feel passionate about this, want to talk about it. So a call out to your local community for people that might want to come together and starting with a small group so you can build that trust and build relationships, because trust is at the core of this. And again, Kirsty and Jane and Nicola are maybe better placed to explain this, but for me, I don't think anyone could have created something like Storyhouse Childless without trust in each other. That feels really important and really core. So you've got to take your time and build that with the people that you're working with. So yeah, I'd certainly start by looking for people with the relevant kind of lived experience and bringing them together for a small conversation and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Annabel, because I very much had my local tribe, as it were, of then Gateway women. I was going in kind of asking for space on sort of their behalf. And I was at a place in my childlessness where, I'd come to a point where I'd still get emotional. We all do. It's a roller coaster. But I was happy to go and speak up. I'm happy to share my story, to talk out, because like I said, the awareness is a thing. So, and I was also brought up, if you don't ask, you don't get. So just to, carefully look at what venues are in your area, look at the kind of thing that they're doing. Do they do other community projects? Are they really community friendly? Are they really inclusive? And yeah, you have to be brave, but it's worth it. It's so worth it if you can kind of go in and have those discussions. And as Annabel said, if you've got a sort of a group of you, there's also power in numbers.
I was going to ask, actually. So I talk to a lot of people, and I'm always talking about Chester because I absolutely adored it last year. The atmosphere in the venue was just so supportive, wasn't it? And I often get asked from people who go, well, I'd have to come up on my own, or I'm really not sure about getting in a room full of people that don't have children. I don't know if I'm going to feel safe. What advice would you give them to help them, encourage them to come along? Because I think it's a real opportunity to be in a space where it's exclusively non-parents.
I don't know, Kirsty, do you want to answer that? I know I've got a few practical things, but maybe you can talk from the heart a bit more.
I was going to say, will you explain about the Facebook group?
Yeah, I will.
You're not on your own, although you are, and overcoming that first hurdle. And I've seen this so many times, with the local Childless Collective. Somebody the first time, there used to be, people will come and have a little peek, or maybe want to come and then cancel. And we all understand. I think everybody in that room, even the child-free people, it's not black and white. So don't think that, there's people there who aren't going to get it. I would say there is so much trust and support there. There will always be somebody. We've got the focus group there as well. And the focus group has grown and grown over the years. So there's more people you can actually connect to on an individual level. And it is a nice venue in that there's spaces you can escape to if you need to. Does that make sense? The garret is wonderfully contained and intimate, so you feel very safe in there. And although we've heard it's a big 800 theatre, the main theatre, we're only kind of using the stalls, aren't we, Nick, mainly, unless we get inundated with hundreds. So it will still have that. It has that nice, safe, tamed feel to it. And there's just I can't explain it other than there is a really supportive energy. All the volunteers have been briefed in advance, as Jane explained. So everybody kind of knows what's going on and is supportive of it. And this year we've got, I'll let Nick explain about the Facebook group and everything, so that people can actually start to, make connections in advance, because that's really important. If you are coming on your own, you can feel connected to people even before you come. So can you explain that, Nick? Because you know what I'm like with tech.
Yeah, so based on feedback, we've done a couple of years where we'll tell the customers and the audiences that we've got our really friendly focus group who can be there in the room to welcome you and sort of like take you by your hand, go and get a cup of tea, so you're not like potentially standing on your own or sitting on your own, but yeah, to elevate that, I guess we've used Facebook groups, which are sometimes really successful for these sorts of communities. Like Michael set up the Childless Not By Choice community for men a while ago now, didn't you? So we've set up a Storyhouse Childless Facebook group, which is an open group, and we'll be telling all of our bookers to join. But anyone can join it if you're thinking of coming and then want to like ask some questions. We've got some threads to talk about train travel and hotel stays, so you can, I guess it's like I'm going to a festival in November and I'm part of a group and people are already talking about, who they're going to go and see and where they're going to go and meet. So it's like, you can, the power of social media, you can really form relationships, I think, and friendships online. But just also to say, Chester is a really small, lovely tourist town. So everything's not too far away from each other. You can get to Storyhouse from the train station walking in about 15 minutes. So we just, in terms of that, if you're just like, God, I hate going to new places, it's really easy to get around and it doesn't feel too busy, even though it is like a tourist town. And we aren't doing... so what Chester is also famous for is we've got a beautiful race course. So the festival isn't on when the races is on. So that's sometimes when the city does get very busy. So we always align it to make sure that they don't clash. So I think that helps. But again, also, like Kirsty said, everyone's there to kind of, if you want to say, can you meet me by the red door? I don't think I'm going to make it through the door. We can sort that out.
I think also it's worth saying that I think a lot of the other communities, I'm sure that Childless Collective has a thread on it. I know we've got space in our online community as well, where we're talking about Storyhouse too. So there's lots of different individual chats going on. If people don't particularly like Facebook or have left it for whatever reason, then it's worth just asking around, ask other people that you might know, and just say, is there a chat going on about this too? There might be a WhatsApp group somewhere, something like that, that's also talking about it as well. And I think the focus group, I'm trying to remember, the three of us are on it, Jane, Kirsty and me. There's Andy Harold is on there. There's Ali and Carrie, who are both child free. So there's representatives from both child free and from childless on there too. And I would think that most of our guests that are UK based are there too. So if you need to go and look them up, they're obviously going to be on our website as well. And you can just Google people that come up on the programme and just get to know them. But we three are all going to be there as well from the full stop. So there's going to be some familiar faces around too. So you can just get in touch with us beforehand and just say, look, actually, I just need someone. In fact, we did that last year. Michael, you were helping somebody and supporting them to get through the door as well. And I think that's a really important part of what we can do, as perhaps more people who are a little bit further along in that kind of, as you said, Kirsty, it's still roller coaster days, but we're just kind of at that point where we're a bit more perhaps in a different kind of space moving on. So definitely come along if you feel like you can, even if it's just for a short, one session or something like that. But then if you need support afterwards, then the bar is really nice, isn't it, there? I really like that when we went into the bar and the kitchen area as well, with all of the words from Benjamin Zephaniah as well. It's a beautiful space just to go and sit and just chill and get a drink and just find somewhere quiet to be. Look at all the books. The books are lovely.
And I think, is it worth saying, Nick, is it on the Saturday evening, that kitchen area? Have we got that kind of reserved for the childless? So, you don't even need necessarily to worry, what would I do for dinner? Where will I go? I'll be on my own. that's all things have been thought of. So, and by then you might want space on your own, you might want to go off, or you might have met somebody and go somewhere else. There's loads of places in Chester, but we have tried to kind of think of everything so that people kind of won't feel isolated if they don't want that kind of own time.
I think that's a big effect, isn't it, actually, this year as well? Because I think last year it was a bit kind of disparate. People didn't quite know what they were doing on the Saturday night. And yeah, that's a really big move forward, isn't it?
Yeah, so on the Friday night, you can come from about 7 o'clock and just spend some time in the Garrett Bar, which is on the 4th floor. It's got a lovely view of the city architecture, and we'll be there. The bar will be open, and some of the focus group will be there. So just to sort of like see the space, if you like suffer from anxiety maybe and you need to look at the theatre, like I can go and show you the main stage and show you all the entrances and where the toilets are. And then we will do some optional speed friending as well, where we get people around the table, have a little bell and make people move, ask people to move when after they've had a 2-minute chat with each person. So think speed dating, but with potential new friends. So that's the Friday night. And then the Saturday morning, we kind of open an hour earlier as well. The building is open from 8:30, and we've got the longest opening hours of any library in the UK. Come in at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, and when it's super quiet, and get a coffee. But myself and the focus group will be there from about 9, having some coffee and cake, pastries, and just settling in. And so, and then Saturday night, we're going to take over the kitchen, which is the name of our gorgeous restaurant. We have a fab menu of, is it Levantine food? Lots of like a great menu, but we're going to take over the kitchen. And so it's gorgeous sharing tables where it doesn't matter. You just book a space, and you'll be sat with someone who's been to the festival that day. That's the Saturday night, and then we'll be back on Sunday morning. We'll open a bit later. We'll be opening with some guided meditation from Bindi Shah on the Sunday morning, or you can go for a run with Ali and Heather if you're a super runner and like getting up early in the morning. And then so the Sunday's a shorter day based on feedback, so you'll be finished by about 4:30, which means you can get train home and just sort of or make a whole weekend of it and stay till Monday.
Are you able to share what you've got on? What's what the agenda is? Who's doing what? Are you able to share any of that?
Yeah. So we're going on sale. Well, we're already on sale. So because the tickets, based on feedback, really, I think Berenice was one of the driving force behind this. Was there's people that we know that definitely want to come in 2024. So why not do an early bird? And I was like, oh my gosh, we don't do early birds at Storyhouse. Never heard that term used before, but I put it to the team, and again, because they're so open to new ideas, they was like, okay, let's do it. And we've sold 90 tickets on the early bird price. So we were just like 90 people want to come and don't even know what we've programmed. So proves the trust. Hey,
it was something that I thought of because there's a thing I go to, and I've just come back from it in Newcastle, and they literally sell the tickets that day. So when everyone's in the venue and they sit there, and they're kind of in that kind of woo kind of zone with this business kind of thing. It's a massive thing called Atomic. And they literally sell the next year's tickets that night. So by midnight, you get a discount, and then you've bought your ticket for the following June. I'm not that life organised, but they tell me that an awful lot of people do. And it's just because they're in that kind of woo, yay zone. And it's interesting.
You're going to come, just book it and get a little bit cheaper. But
really good. And that's the point, I suppose, about our community, is there's always going to be something fantastic going on. And isn't that amazing after so many years when, we've all been at that point where there hasn't been anything or no one to talk about, and you just kind of, but there's just more people than there is slots now.
So shall I leave a little bit for seat? I'll keep a little bit away. I won't divulge everything, because otherwise I feel like The marketing team will be a bit like, oh,
Yeah.
So no, I will say, like, so we're going to open with a panel called "Why Do We Need Storyhouse Childless?" We always try and set the scene at the start of every Saturday. So the festival is designed as a 2-day thing, like, just to stress you still can just come for one event. And as we know, the Dr. Dawn Llewellyn, who is an associate professor at the University of Chester who studies childlessness and motherhood and theology. She's our wonderful host for the day, and she's like a thread throughout it all. She's part comedian, part MC, part academic. But yeah, she'll be interviewing some people on why do we need Storyhouse Childless. We did it for Storyhouse Women back in March, and it was just a great, like, it was one of my favourite events. And all of these events that we programme are kind of like a good, really nice mix of, I'm sure Kirsty won't mind me saying, but like Joe Blogs people, just local people that live in just, yeah, but then also authors and bloggers and academics. So I really like that blend of how we've programmed it. Then we're going to move on to a panel called Changes, Confusions and Connections. So that's going to be led by Ali Hall, who came for the first time last year, and she speaks beautifully about how you can move how you're feeling or how you'll use a label throughout your lifetime and journey. We are going to do a dedication to Benjamin Zephaniah. Jessica Hepburn is going to come back for that after she did her keynote last year. So she is really touched that we invited her to come and do that, because Jessica Hepburn had previously interviewed Benjamin, the late Benjamin Zephaniah, at her fertility fest that she programmed for a 3-year series a few years ago. We're going to have a dedicated event on the men's experience where Michael will be. And yeah, we do have a super exciting keynote. I'm not going to tell you. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep it back. Jodie is, of course, going to be back. Jodie Day will be talking about disrupting ageism, the prejudice against our future selves. I love that title. Kirsty is going to be on the stage with some wonderful people talking about how we overcome othering. And yeah, a really another exciting author who's just had a book published called The Lives of Women Without Children. We're going to have a dedicated panel all about being single, and also another dedicated panel all around research, which was audience feedback. People were like, after they'd heard what Dawn does as a job where she researches for a living, people were like, what? So people actually research childlessness? And the answer is yes, they do. So we've got some academics who will be, talking about their work, and they are all childless, not by choice or by choice, as well as doing the research themselves. So I think, does that give you enough of a flavour?
That's brilliant. That's lovely. Yeah, and Sarah's going to be there. You're doing a session, and I'm with Kirsty doing the othering as well. So we're together on that, which will be really nice as well. And yeah, spoiler there, Michael's coming over from Australia. But I think most people know that now, don't they, Michael? Do you know that you're coming over?
I was just thinking about tickets because I haven't bought any yet. I've got to get my finger. I hope there's some left. But now I'm on microphone. I've got a bit of a meaty question. So if you're feeling courageous enough, one of the things I'd like to ask, and Annabel, I'm not trying to isolate you from this, but as you said, you haven't experienced Storyhouse Childless just yet. But Kirsty, Nicola and Jane, I'd really like to know, how has being an intrinsic part of Storyhouse Childless, has it changed you, experience for you?
Go on, Kirsty, go for it.
I literally can't talk about it without getting emotional. That's how much it needs to. But it has changed me in that back in 2019, I also found out that I was going to have to permanently retire from working. And so I can't do a lot and I can't commit to a lot of things. But what's been amazing is that with Storyhouse Childless, it's given one of the most important areas of my now identity real purpose and meaning for the rest of my life. It's as in not the rest of my life to come. I don't expect them, they won't necessarily do it till we die, but just it gives that purpose and meaning to be involved with something. You don't feel invisible. I'm just really, really grateful. And I've just met so many. You just fangirl. I know that sounds a really funny thing. How's that changed your life? But you guys, I walked in the woods with you in 2019. You were the people I was listening to when I was first kind of going, yeah, I'm not on my own with this, but where's everybody else? And now, I'm so lucky you all come to Chester. Everybody comes together. The sense of community that it gives you, it gives me anyway. It's a very, very strong sense of community. And it has changed me for that. I think it's notched up my kind of gentle activism and how much I really want to create awareness, because we were so well received at Storyhouse. I just think, everybody should know that the childless community exists. So yeah, that's me, and I managed not to cry too much. So there you go.
Well, as soon as you said that, I could feel the tears welling up myself when you said that. So you're not alone.
For me, yeah, it really impacted me when we were doing the briefing, Nicola, with the volunteers, because that's the first time I've ever talked in a general audience about me and my journey in childlessness. I came away and I thought, wow, that was so empowering, because I've just gone through life hidden, really, with that identity. I've never raised a focus about it. So I found that really empowering. And like Kirsty, I have met some amazing people, and I'm a fangirl of quite a few people. But closer to that is the local group that Kirsty manages. I've met wonderful women in that. And it's about finding your tribe, and that has been, it's meant so much. Now I'm getting tearful. Thank you.
I think it's also normalising though, isn't it? I think when you turn up somewhere, and it is incredibly emotional to meet people. I mean, bear in mind that last year was the first time the three of us on the podcast had actually met each other. And we'd actually met each other on the Friday night because I got heckled in the street by Michael. And then you did some kind of like drive-by grabbing Sarah and bringing her over to where I was staying. That's kind of what happened, vaguely. Sounds more exciting than probably it was. But anyway, because we thought if we went in to Storyhouse, and that was the first time we'd seen each other, it was just going to be too much emotion for us, I think, because we had to meet other people as well. But actually what I found was that although we'd been speaking to each other for a good, I can't remember when I joined the focus group, but of course I'd met, I knew of you, Kirsty, I knew of you, Jane, through Gateway Women and Childless Collective, but then to actually see you in person as well. And it was just like, wow, but also everyone's just very normal. What we think, oh gosh, like the keynote this year, particularly fangirly myself, obviously can't mention names, but I'm like, gosh, okay, I know this person, but I don't know them. But actually, it's just going to be like, they're going to be normal people, because actually that's just what it is too. It's about meeting people and finding that we're all, as we like to say in the episodes, the full stop, you're not alone, isn't it? I think that's the important thing, because sometimes it can really feel like that.
Yeah.
Shall I?
Nicola, you're not
I've got a few things to share. No, yeah. So, I mean, I get paid to program it and work with amazing people, but for the fact that I get paid for it and do like a few other festivals of a similar like format, I always say in my like appraisals, and when I'm talking to people about what I do at Storyhouse, this event I've seen like has the single most impact that I've ever seen on any other community co-curated festival. And, that will have something to do with the type of people that maybe give feedback. But the feedback that we get from the contributors and the audiences, and in between when there's breaks, half an hour breaks between each event, like it just blows me away. And, it's an emotional roller coaster for me, myself as an ally every year, and, hearing all of the stories as well. And I guess it's made me more of a stronger ally as well, in terms of calling people out as well in my day-to-day life, And I feel really privileged to be able to do that as well. And also educating people just generally, you know, chatting about my work. You know, I remember being on a hen do one year and they said, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm just programming this. And they were like, what? So there's people that don't have children? And I was like, yeah. Like, so, yeah. And also, I guess, I'm super proud of the festival as well. And, like, I'm so lucky to have met Kirsty. But also, like, I just remember the moment when I think it was 2022, when we did the first men's panel. And Jodie Day said at the end in the Q&A, she was like, I've been to countless events and festivals and talks and webinars, and I've never seen a panel of men or a group of men publicly talk about their childlessness or the fact that they were child free. And I was just like, wow, like Jodie Day's a best-selling author. Like, so yeah, that was a massive like career highlight. And just feel super proud for the whole community and focus group that helped pull it together.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all.
It's a big difference, isn't it? I think as well, to be able to be on the stage, just to touch on that part of it. You know, we can talk about that men might write about childlessness, or they might have come on the podcast and talk about it, but to actually sit on the stage is quite a different experience. I first did something like that at Fertility Fest, and it was a very, very different experience in a good way, but also it's challenging. There's no bones about it. It is quite challenging as well to do that and to take ownership of that. So it's a very powerful space. Lots of powerful things happen, I think, in those 2.5 days.
Sorry, I'm getting this mute button. Sorry, Michael. Not responsive. I want to jump in, and it's not playing ball.
That's all right. I can get the dead air out. That's all right.
That's okay. I was going to ask, I was wondering where you see, so we've heard a lot about where the festival's come, and it's come from quite humble roots, and you can see the growth. I mean, you can obviously talk about numbers and the way it's changed. Where do you see it going? What when you think about the future, what would you, in an ideal world, like it to look like if you had complete artistic license?
Well, I'll talk for Ali, actually, because I think Ali Hall, who has just set up a new blog, actually, she would say that she would want to start including a discussion around bridging the gap between parents, child-free people and childless not by choice people. That would be her answer. So, yeah, she did mention something in the focus group to me, and I was just like, no, not this year, but yeah, it might be that it's maybe one panel in future years, because, you know, like Kirsty said, it would be like in Kirsty's ideal world, like people from all walks of life, including parents, would sit in the audience and listen to the stories so that they have their light bulb moment and go, yeah, call people out when they're parading baby scans around the office, or I don't know. Yeah, I won't try and think of another example, but that's just the example that, yeah, I always sort of, you know, come back to. Yeah, that's me. I think it
would be wonderful to have parents and bridging the gap and everything. Would just be, yeah, fantastic. And at the other kind of end, the more of the end of the normalising and entertainment, dare we say it, spectrum, I would love one day to just have people there who are well-known people who come to the theatre, but, you know, don't normally necessarily, we know they don't have children, they don't necessarily talk about their childlessness, but to somehow manage to include them into Storyhouse Childless, like people like Andrew Cotter and Oliver Mabel. I think Andrew doesn't have children. And I can't remember the man off the sewing bee. This is all men now. This is terrible, isn't it? But do you know what I mean? Just so that, yes, they talked about not having children, and I wouldn't necessarily want them to talk about not having children, but I just think to be able to have that normality of also helps to bridge that gap of awareness. But that's my fantasy world. There are other female ones as well. It's not just me wanting to meet these people, but, you know, I will get to see Oliver Mabel one day.
I do know who you mean with Oliver. Yeah, And Tricotta, yes, and the dogs, yeah. They came close to our house on the fens when they were doing the boat race, and I was just like fangirling over 2 dogs. Yeah.
They're quite local to kind of Cheshire and stuff. I think so, having read both books. Not that, not obsessive at all. Not the videos you post, we try and spot the beaches. But yeah, normalising is so important, I think, eventually. We've got a bit of awareness and it's a long way to go, but yeah.
You're getting there, though. I think in terms of what I've seen, the last year was Dawn's parents, and then this year, of course, we've got the othering as well. So that's quite a nice big conversation to have. And in time, it feels like it's getting there, doesn't it? And it's just like a little incremental kind of like, we're just going to take it in this direction a bit and come out of maybe talking to each other and going out to the bigger, wider world and saying, here we are. I think that's a lovely place to head to, isn't it? Nice aim.
Young people just popped into my head as well. I'd love to see the audience. Yeah, there's definitely been some 20-year-olds in the audience, but I'd love to see that number grow and to get the message out there that you can just come and be curious and be an audience member. You don't have to have made a decision or be in a certain point in your life to experience the storytelling, because that's essentially what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a diverse audience last year. I was surprised. It's the first time I'd been in person, and then looking up at the audience from the stage and saying, yeah, it was quite interesting to see that. And it was really lovely to see representations, not just from women, but from other people as well. And it was nice to have that and to welcome those questions as well. It was a very powerful experience because it affects so many people. But yeah, there was quite a few questions, I think, around parents that I remember and about handling other family members' grief, but also the workplace as well. That was an interesting one too, about dealing with that and maybe perhaps bringing workplaces in and actually having more of a conversation about that. And I think Katie was particularly brilliant, Katie from Mist, was just really, and I know that she benefited quite a lot from that, because a lot of people said, actually, yeah, you can come into my workplace, let's talk about this. It empowered people to ask her and for them to go up and ask their HR people, but I want this person to come in and do a talk. I think that's an incredibly powerful thing. It sets people off like a little kind of empowerment journey of their own.
I've got a question, or actually maybe a suggestion. So when I have done acting classes in the past, but too ugly for film. But one of the things that we did was monologues as part of the training. Have you ever thought about getting actors to perform the monologues of our stories? I can see Kirsty nodding her head, so you obviously have. But they can be extremely powerful pieces of work and at the same time give actors some work, but also in a way of spreading the message again. Is that something you guys have thought about?
Kirsty, do you want to answer that? Because we have
got
an answer.
Isn't it? I've had a 3-hander in my head based on monologues for a long time, but to actually be able to, there's a whole big project there, which unfortunately my health doesn't allow me to do. But if somebody could work with us, and it's about getting sponsorship and funding and all those difficult things. We've got some more creative performing arts coming in this year with a kind of open mic as well. I think, have we still, Nick?
Yeah, we've got a creative opportunity for artists and writers to share their works. I can't remember her name, but one of the women who was on the Elders panel last year, Julie last year, talking about aging without children, and she's a writer and she's creating something at the moment, and I think she might be performing a little snippet of it this year, and she has talked to me about getting some funding so that she can direct it and employ, cast an actor. We also 2 years ago, I can't remember her name either, but she actually brought her full-length show, didn't she? Kirsty, what's the actor called? Victoria Firth brought her show, which was fantastic. Everyone really enjoyed that, didn't they? That was on tour, fully funded piece of theatre. And yeah, I feel like there are Probably people like in the background, maybe in the shadows, that are working on things that would love.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a great way of sharing people's stories, isn't it?
Yeah, without having to have a fully funded, big, massive event. That's what I was thinking about. It's just, having some people do some monologues would be
Have you
cool.
got any questions from the audience at all? I can't see chat, so you're going to have to edit this bit.
I can see chat, and someone's already signed up to the Facebook group, so look out for that. Yeah.
I've just approved them because it popped up.
Okay.
Just in a roundabout way, it popped up, and I'm just sitting here, and my phone went ping, and I went, "What's that?" Thinking it was my friends coming around.
If there's people in the audience going, "How do I do chat?" Look for it. There should be a. I'm just thinking. I've just had a quick look at Vicky's iPad. There's a little speech bubble that if you hit that, I think you can put a question in. Well, mind you, someone already has. So yeah, look for the speech bubble.
There aren't any questions in there at the moment.
No.
Okay, fine. So in that case, I think we can bring this to a close. So thank you so much for your time this morning and chatting to us about it. I can't wait to see all three. Well, 4 of you. It will be amazing.
There is a question just popped up. Sorry to interrupt you, Berenice. Can I ask, what is the session about othering all about? Sounds a bit scary.
Kirsty, that's for you to answer.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember the blurb now, but it's basically all about, have you ever felt othered? Do you feel, at work with family and friends? Are you made to feel a bit different because you're childless? You're at a party and everybody's talking about their kids. How do you navigate it? What do you do? Over the years, we've had people kind of having discussions like this afterwards, or asking people questions sort of individually. So we thought we'd make it an actual panel so that people can actually ask questions, share their stories as well. And it's not kind of a scary and a us and them othering at all. It's actually kind of about, how do you negotiate those sort of tricky situations? Yeah, Berenice.
I think it's to be supportive as well. I think it's the benefit probably of being maybe a little bit sort of further along, but also stuff that I've learned from the podcast, stuff that I learned from talking to people, as you have as well, Kirsty, and just the benefit of sort of wisdom, and also just kind of when we've tried stuff out. I think, I don't know about you, but I've tried things out that have worked better than other things, and sharing that knowledge and just leaning into such a few feelings around how we deal with other people. Because that's sometimes the hardest thing. I think for me, certainly, I noticed this when we'd left last year, and there was lots of advice and lots of information, and a few people I think left thinking, yay, right, going to do this, and then of course other people happen, and you can't account for other people. So giving it and putting it into one panel, I think, is just a way of just sharing some wisdom and some thoughts, probably also around our experiences of having been in Storyhouse and left it, and where we move from there. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be very supportive, not scary, but supportive. And of course, you can be as engaged as you want to with that as well. If you just want to sit and listen, no one makes it so that you have to ask a question. It's not compulsory to do that. You can also leave the venue as well. If you think, this is too much, you can come in, come out. But the general idea is that every session is very well supported and briefed really well, so that we hold the audience with us and keep a safe space. I think that's important, in the way that also Nicola is talking to all of us about who's going to be on the panels as well and what the panels are. So we're checking in and making sure that for us it feels right for us, and therefore hopefully feels right for the audience as well.
An important thing we've left off is the dates. Thankfully, Nicola's put them in the chat. So can we just throw the dates?
Not on.
Yeah, so 28th and 29th of September. We will share all of the links to the Storyhouse so that you can book tickets if you'd like to come along. But yeah, or you can just Google it if you're chomping at the bit. But yeah, no, good point, Nicola.
The dates. Thing is on the Friday, so if you're turning up on the Friday and you will at a loose end and you want to come along and check out the venue, then that's at 7:00 on the Friday at Storyhouse as well. And it's an amazing building. You can't miss it. It's fantastic. And it's absolutely lovely inside. I'm very jealous of all of you that live in Chester, because I'd literally move in and work. I'd probably just go and sit at your desk, Nicola, and just like, can I do something? Because it's so lovely. It's really hard to leave once you get. It's lovely.
Yeah, we just had another comment where someone's looking forward to the singles group. a single group chat as well.
Good. That's really good to hear.
It's going to be amazing. It was last year. It's going to be amazing this year. I can't wait to come up again.
Yeah. And we're looking forward to sharing some of the audio and recordings with people as well. So we'll be there and you can come and find us, the Full Stop. We'll be taking audio recordings. And if you want to be on the Full Stop podcast, then that's the way to do it. Come and find us and share what you're feeling about what you're doing. No obligation. Just come along if you want to and grab one of us and we can do that. And we'll be sharing that with the rest of the world. So if you're listening to this going, oh, I don't feel part of it, empathy, we're going to try and make you part of it. There'll be photographs as well and lots of things going on too and on social media over the course of that weekend. I'm going to learn so much more about Instagram probably than I do already.
Thanks for listening. If you want to find out more about Storyhouse Childless, just Google that. It will be very easy to find, as it is a unique name and, as far as we know, the only one in the world. And if you want to find out more about our podcast, or you have a burning topic that we've not covered, please reach out to us, as we would like to be as inclusive and diverse as possible. You can find us at www.thefullstoppod.com or Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. And whilst there, please consider subscribing to our listeners list, as well as becoming a member of our private online community, which helps us fund the podcast and all our other projects. And we would love it if you could rate the podcast on the platform you are using, and this will help the algorithm get us in front of more of our community. And as always, it's important for us to let you know you are not alone.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Precious time that you've spent with us.
Yes, on a Sunday morning as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's my first ever podcast.
Is it really?
Me,
Never been on a podcast before. I can tick that off.
me too.
Oh,
Thank
amazing.
you.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for bearing with us on the tech.